Well, in breaking news, the National Prosecuting Authority is set to appeal the Oscar Pistorius sentence for murder. Pistorius was sentenced by the North Gauteng High Court to 6 years behind bars for killing his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp in February 2013. The Supreme Court of Appeal had earlier overturned the Paralympian's conviction of culpable homicide to that of murder. In a statement issued today, the NPA says it has considered the sentence handed to Pistorius and has decided to file an application for leave to appeal. It believes Pistorius' 6-year sentence is disproportionate to the crime of murder and is shockingly lenient. It also argues that the sentence could bring the administration of justice into disrepute. All right, well, for more now on this, I'm joined in studio by Ulrich Roux, a criminal law expert. Ulrich, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, let's start with this. I spoke to Tanya Kuhn earlier, the spokesperson and the attorney for the Steenkamp family, and she kept saying that they fully support Gerrie Nel and his team and the work that they did. But surely this is an indication that the family is unhappy with the sentence.
Well, it is one of the considerations that the state needs to take into account. But ultimately, the main decision that they need to make is whether a different court, in this case a higher court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, will come to a different conclusion faced with the same set of facts that was presented to Judge Masipa. And obviously, they've evaluated the sentencing and all of the mitigating and aggravating circumstances, and they feel that they could have the Supreme Court of Appeal handing down a harsher sentence. So the family's wishes would be considered, but it's not the begin-all and the end-all of a decision to appeal.
So what's the likelihood that a higher court will impose a tougher sentence?
Well, we will have to look at obviously the minimum sentence prescribed for murder, which is 15 years, and if the accused person, in this case Pistorius, can prove to the court that the court should deviate from that minimum sentence, then it could. Judge Masipa, in her sentence, when she handed down sentence, she said that all of the surrounding circumstances, as well as the fact that he had indirect intent when he shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp, forced her to deviate from that minimum sentence. And as we saw with the verdict, when the verdict of culpable homicide was overturned, the Supreme Court of Appeal made a different ruling, and they made a different finding on those same facts, and we'll have to wait and see whether they do the same with the sentencing. The procedure now, they first need to apply for leave to appeal to Judge Masipa. So she decides whether she grants leave to appeal to the Supreme Court or not. If she refuses leave to appeal, then they can petition the Supreme Court of Appeal. In other words, approach the court directly, and then if their papers are convincing enough, then the court will grant them that opportunity to launch their appeal in Bloemfontein.
And if it is successful, how many years or what could Oscar Pistorius be looking at?
Well, once again, it's difficult to say, just as it was when Judge Masipa handed down sentence. Remember that the only real indication that the court has is the minimum sentence of 15 years. But if he shows substantial and compelling circumstances, then the court can deviate from that. A lot of people came out and said that 6 years was too lenient, and especially given the fact that he was convicted of murder. But you know, one must remember that it was murder dolus eventualis, so he had indirect intent. It's not as if he made a decision that evening that he was going to load his gun and he was going to shoot Reeva Steenkamp and he was going to kill her. It was, as the Supreme Court of Appeal found, a case of mistaken identity, and we'll have to wait and see whether they agree with, if it reaches the Supreme Court, whether they agree with Judge Masipa or not. The one threat that, or risk that there is for the NPA is that the Supreme Court of Appeal has the jurisdiction to also reduce a sentence. So if they find, based on the evidence presented to them and the arguments, that the sentence was in fact too harsh, they could very well hand down a lighter sentence.
Do you think, Ulrich, that because of the nature of this case that there's been so much back and forth, is this being properly handled? Do you agree with the NPA, with what they're doing now? Or are they trying to set a precedent and make an example of Oscar Pistorius?
Well, if one reads their statement, they do say that they need to send out a clear message to future would-be murderers, you know, faced with the same set of facts and circumstances as Oscar Pistorius was, and it's their prerogative. It's you know, all of the functions are there for them to maneuver within, and you know, our law and our supreme, you know, our Criminal Procedure Act states that if they aren't happy with the sentence handed down, then they can approach the Supreme Court of Appeal. So this case has been all-encompassing. We've seen everything. We've seen a mental evaluation. We've seen an appeal. We've seen it being overturned. We're now seeing an appeal once again. And it really, all of the different levels in our judicial system is being called upon in this matter, which makes it very interesting.
Because a lot of people would say that, you know, it's using up taxpayers' money, it's taking so much time, and what does it say for our justice system?
Well, once again, you know, there's always going to be those people who have their own opinion, but as Judge Masipa pointed out, the function of the judicial system and the courts is not to be popular among society, and it's not to serve the public perception. It's there to serve the public interest. And as I said, once again, if the state, it's their prerogative, if they feel that they can have a harsher sentence handed down, then they're free to approach the Supreme Court of Appeal. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are saying there's much more important matters that they should be dealing with, but it's their decision at the end of the day which matters they will be pursuing and which not.
Ulrich Roux, law expert, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.